Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, I am talking to a football legend, a former Rangers, Celtic, Tottenham and Scotland star. He played for Tottenham between 1974 and 1977, making 38 league appearances for Spurs, scoring 6 goals. Also making 2 FA Cup appearances, 3 League Cup appearances, scoring once. Known by many as the King of White Hart Lane, he is fans' favourite, Alfie Conn. Alfie, a great pleasure for you to come on the channel. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Chris. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on your channel.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Of course, Alfie, in the last couple of months, you've just released your autobiography. This is the book, Alfie Conn, the Alfie Conn story. What's it all about? Of course, it is published by Pitch Publishing. It is available in hardback, £25. Now, tell us a little bit about it, how this book came about.
It was I was asked to cover it over the last 30 years and didn't think, the time was there. And then I was approached by Jeff to do a book, and I thought, well, if I do a book now, the majority of the money is going to charity, especially in motor neuron, which I still get upset talking about it. But the majority of proceeds go to MND, and that's the only reason I've done the book. It's not for personal gain.
Alfie, you mentioned MND there. Of course, if the book is purchased through the author, Jeff Holmes, you can get in touch with him, jeff.holmes4@btinternet.com. Of course, you've done this book, Alfie, to raise money for MND because of your late wife.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Alfie, I read the book. It is absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to talk to you about your career. Now, you said you've been asked to do this book for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
How did this come about then? Did Jeff actually approach you and say, how about let's sit down? Go on.
Sorry. On you go.
No, I was going to say, I think I read in the book that you sat down with Jeff a number of times in Costa.
Costa Coffee, that's right. We were quite regular. I think it was once a week for about 6 weeks, and then we cut it down, a couple of weeks. But enjoyed the coffee right enough. But Jeff he done really well, because there's a lot of things in the book I didn't realise I had done. So it brought it back to me quite a bit.
Alfie, what do you want the reader to get from the book?
Just a bit of enjoyment, and hopefully it's something different, because obviously the Rangers Celtic connection, going from one to the other, was a big deal up here all the years ago, and it still is.
Yeah. And
as I say, it's basically for MND, nothing else.
Yeah, well, it's a great cause, and let's hope that many people go and buy the book, especially after listening to this podcast. Yeah. The book, of course, is available online, but the majority of proceeds will go to MND if bought through Jeff.
Yeah, correct.
Alfie, of course, your early.
Sorry, it doesn't matter where it's purchased.
Okay.
It goes, whether it be on Amazon or through a bookstore, the proceeds will be going to motor neuron. Fantastic.
Alfie, I was going to say, your earliest memory, you mentioned this in the book, kicking a ball at Tynecastle, aged 3 to 4. Now, of course, for those who don't know, your dad was also a professional footballer. Talk us through that, your earliest memory of being with Dad on a school holiday. You're kicking a ball around Tynecastle. It must have been incredible.
Nice. Yeah, my dad used to take me, obviously, during the school holidays into Tynecastle, because he was part of the famous terrible trio in Scotland with Hearts. So when he gave me the opportunity, he took me to Tynecastle, and he would just throw a ball into the park, and I would be running after this ball, you know. And this was in the summer, and my mother had me dressed up as if it was a Russian winter, you know. The coat, the scarf, the hat, the gloves, whatever. And there's me running about Tynecastle, 3-4-year-old, kicking this ball into the net.
Alfie, of course, you attended a rugby school, so sometimes you'd play rugby and football in the same day.
Yeah, I used to play rugby for the school in the morning and then get the bus into a wee place called Musselburgh, just about 3-4 miles away, to play, because it was basically a rugby. It was basically rugby, and that's all that was done. It was later on that football came into the school, you know, so I had to go to Musselburgh and then on to Edinburgh to get a game of football in the afternoon.
What was it like growing up watching your dad play football? Did you always watch him thinking, that's exactly what I want to do?
No, because I was too young at the time. I mean, when my dad stopped playing, I was only 6. And my memories, you know, is going across the Forth Road Bridge in the old steam train, looking out the window at the smoke, you know, and that was going when he moved to Raith Rovers. But apart from that, I can't. It's only clips that I see, you know, he's scoring goals. But apart from that, no, I can't remember him.
Alfie, you talk about this in the book about him telling you to practice with a tennis ball. And people always said that your dad had one of the most powerful shots in the country. But talk to us about playing with a tennis ball. Because even now, do you think that's a good thing for youngsters to do?
I don't know. It depends on the individual. If you want, you know, you try everything to make it in football. And as I say, my dad had the experience because he used to practice with it, you know, just thumping it against a wall. When we stayed in Preston Pines, there was a big wall at the back garden separating the two properties. And it used to take me out with a big ball, kicking against it, controlling it and what have you. And then all of a sudden he brought this tennis ball out. And I thought he was going to hand me a tennis racket. He says, oh, that's for your feet as well. So I used to practice throwing the ball, trying to control it, my thigh, my feet, what have you. And I said to him one day, I says, what's the point of the tennis ball? He says, when you can control that, the big ball is nothing.
Yeah, incredible. Alfie, your dad got offered the chance to go to South Africa, and this is all in the book as well. And you know, your family sold off a number of items in your house, and it looked like you were going to go, and then it didn't happen. But Dave Mackay, of course, former Spurs legend, gave you some money.
Aye, he did. My dad was supposed to go out to South Africa, so in the days that they used to have, it was like a house sale where somebody could come in off the street, purchase something and take it away. So it ended up, they wanted my dad to go to fly to South Africa to sign the contract, but he wouldn't do that. He wanted the contract sent across so his lawyer could check it before he signed. He wouldn't do it. So the furniture was all gone, and he called it off because they wouldn't send the contract across to him. And they had a going away party. And I remember I was sitting on the stairs in our house in Preston Pines, and Dave Mackay had been at the toilet, and he was walking down the stairs. And we were still going to South Africa at this time. And he stopped, tapped me on the shoulder, and says, there you go, Alfie. He handed me the old 10-bob note. That'll buy you sweeties on your trip to South Africa. And I looked at him. I felt like a millionaire. You know what I mean? Because in the days you get a bag of chips for threepence, which, what is about 1.5p for a bag of chips? So that's 10 bob. You felt like a millionaire. But that was Dave Mackay, you know, and he had played for 2 or 3 years, my dad, I think.
Did you have much to do with Dave Mackay after that?
I met him 2 or 3 times, and that was the topic of conversation with him. You know, it was always about my dad and his time at Tynecastle. Excuse me. My dad ended up working for a a paint firm in Derby called Joseph Mason Paints, and he used to go down to the office quite a lot, and he used to up with Dave Mackay, because I think Dave played with Derby and then went on to manage him at one time, I think. So they used to meet up and have a wee conversation, what have you. But Dave Mackay was a great, what I can mind, but especially begin with Temple, he was my pal for life. But he went on to be an absolute out-and-out legend.
Yeah.
At Tynecastle and at Tottenham.
Yeah, absolutely.
More so at Tottenham.
Alfie, what I think is so great about your book is you speak so highly of your upbringing and your parents, and say that they were fantastic role models, and your dad was such an inspiration for your career.
Yeah. But obviously, he was the type of person, he would let you do something, and if he thought you were doing it wrong, he would tell you. He would never force himself, on anything. If you wanted advice, he was there to give me it, And I remember it was one game, just a wee quick story, when I was playing with this team in Musselburgh. We've got a team called Musselburgh Windsor, and we played a local derby against a team just about 5 miles away, which was a local derby. And they put this boy on me to man-mark me. And for 45 minutes, he never left. I never kicked the ball. He just would not leave me alone. And I said to my dad at half time, I says, how do I shake him off? I've tried everything, but I can't get rid of him. He says, see you next time. Just run down to the corner flag, put your arm on the top of the corner flag and just stand and see what he does. I need to tell you, the boys stood next to me, and obviously the crowd were all laughing and what have you. Now, I don't know whether the young boy was embarrassed or not. But a great game after. I think I scored about 2 or 3 goals after it. I got all the space I wanted, but that was my old man,
Alfie, your dad also said to you whilst growing up that if you wanted to be a professional footballer, you'd have to make sacrifices, not going out. How difficult was that? Because at that point, your friends were going out.
Sorry, Chris. It was really hard. I mean, all my pals was out on a Saturday night and I was babysitting in the house. But mother and father went out, met up with their pals, and I was left with my younger brother and sister, But can I just add on, my young brother was the best of the 3 years. Absolutely phenomenal player.
Yeah.
He was down at Arsenal on trial as a laddie as well, but he ended up, he caught diabetes, and that finished because in my days diabetes was a no-no,
Alfie, you mentioned in the book as well, I quote you here, players nowadays get too much money and it affects them. I just wanted to play football. I didn't take school seriously. At what point in your life growing up did you think, I just want to be a footballer?
I think when I sat my first exam, it was in English, and you had to write an essay, and mine was about a Rangers Celtic game. And I remember the teacher calling my mother and father in to see them, and says, by the way, he'll not be here after 15. He says, all he wants to do is play football. And that's basically what happened, Wasn't interested in school. Everyone was football.
Who did you support whilst growing up?
Oh, I was a Rangers supporter.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. They still do, Always supported Rangers for a young age, because I actually signed with Leeds when I was 15 or something, 14, 15, with Don Revie, and signed the contract. We come back into Edinburgh, down at the pressing pans. the Rangers manager, Scott Simon, and the director was sitting outside my house. And the minute I seen them, I've turned to my dad and I've went, I need to go to Ibrox. So he phoned on Revy, and thankfully, he says, right, we'll cancel the contract. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
That was me through to Ibrox.
Alfie, how was that then? Because of course you went on to play for Rangers. You made your debut at 16. You must have felt absolutely incredible at that point. 16 years old, making your debut for the team that you support.
Oh, it was phenomenal, you know. And the manager at the time was Davy White. It was him that gave me my first chance. Was against, I think it was against Dundalk and a European tie, and he threw me on with about 15, 20 minutes to go. So that was me. I never played a game till I was 18, right enough. But making your debut at 16, I couldn't believe it. You know, you're sitting with the players at the airport and you're going, is this happening to me? You know, but it was. So you just go on. But in those days, at 16, you had no fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was later on, because my dad always told me, he says, listen, son, it's hard to get to the top. It's harder to stay there. And he was right, you know.
But when you made your debut, you replaced a very famous name, Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, I think it was Alex Ferguson. Because the tie was gone, it was already won, and I think it was just a case of bringing Alex Ferguson off, because I think he played 2 or 3 games, you know, one after another, and put me on, you know.
Alfie, back in those days, the crowds were absolutely awesome. You speak in the book about playing in front of 120,000 fans at Hampden Park. What on earth was that like?
Oh, well, if you can imagine the crowds now, I think, what is it, Spurs get 60,000 at home games.
Yeah.
Double that and then add on another 6,000 or 10,000. You know what I mean? It was absolutely incredible. It was a Scottish Cup. In fact, that was the last of the big crowds. They cut the crowds down. I think they cut it down to about 90,000 because it was, I mean, they were crammed in like sardines.
Did you like the fact that the crowd was so close to the pitch?
Oh, I loved it. Because I loved to interact with the crowd, you know. And you could hear them shouting, you know. Sometimes you weren't playing that well, and you could hear the individual, you know, shouting and what have you. But basically, the whole time, it was like one crescendo of noise hitting the centre of the park, because you had 50,000, 60,000 Rangers supporters, and you had 60,000 Celtic supporters, and they're all shouting and singing at each other. So it used to congregate in the centre of the park. So we used to try and stay away from the centre.
What sort of stick did you get from the Celtic fans at this point?
Just the normal, you know, because you played obviously with the opposite team.
Yeah.
But you never, it wasn't like violent stick. It was just, you were a Rangers player, so you got abuse. If you were a Celtic player, you got abuse for the Rangers players. Rangers supporters, sorry, no players.
Alfie, you speak in the book, and I'm going to quote you again. You said, Rangers fans were wonderful to me. I received a lot of fan mail and a few marriage proposals.
So, I know that.
Yeah, a few marriage proposals. You must have got some weird and wonderful fan mail.
It wasn't half, because as I say, we used to come in every morning and you had a wee, what they call pigeonhole, and your mail was put into that. But I can't remember it saying that. I got a few marriage proposals.
That's in the book. That's in the book.
Well, I'll need to speak to Jeff about that one.
You speak, Alfie, about playing at the Nou Camp, Barcelona. The atmosphere was unbelievable. You also talk about winning the European Cup Winners' Cup, and that was the highlight of your career. Was the Nou Camp the best stadium you ever played in?
At that time it was, you know. I mean, Ibrox was different class. Parkhead was great. Hampden was great. And I'm talking about the old stadiums. You know, when we were getting 90,000 at Ibrox and it was 80,000 at Celtic Park.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go to the new camp. Oh, it was a final, but I think there was 30,000 Rangers supporters at it. And I think there was 2 Russian supporters. You know, because they just weren't allowed to travel in those days.
Yeah.
So there was about 30,000. The atmosphere, if we had the bigger crowd, it had been a lot better, you know. But I will say that the Rangers supporters saved us when they invaded the park before the final whistle. It gave us the breather that we needed because we were absolutely out in our knees, out in our feet. We were. I think if they'd have scored to equalise and made it 3 each, we would have lost the final.
At this point in your career, though, Alfie, early 20s, you've got trophies. You know, you've got winners' medals in the on the mantelpiece. At this point, though, you said in the book as well that you didn't play enough. The team played 56 matches. You only played 34. You wanted more football.
Yeah. It was a case of that team that won. We never played again together after that final. And then a new manager took over, and it was a case of he had a different view, a style of play he wanted. And obviously I didn't fit in. Colin Stein didn't fit in. Wally Johnson didn't fit in. And Graham Fife didn't fit into his style of play. So it was a case I had to move. Didn't want to move, but I had to.
Yeah. Aston Villa, Sunderland, Manchester United are all interested in you. You actually say in the book, no thought in my mind about playing elsewhere. You thought that you were going to be off to Sweden for pre-season. The club then told you weren't going to get on that flight. You were going to get on a flight to London. Yeah. Talk us through that.
I'd actually met up with Tommy Docherty a couple of weeks before it. It was a Scotland-England game at Hampden, and I'd met him in a bar in a restaurant that all the managers and players used to go into at the time. And I met with him, and he was going on holiday. He says, look, back after my holiday, we'll get you down to Manchester and get you signed. I went, that's great. As you say, I got the phone call to meet the Rangers manager at the airport. You're not going to Sweden, meet me at the airport tomorrow morning. So I did. And he was a man of few words. And I'm saying to myself, why am I going to London if I'm going to meet Tommy Docherty? Surely it should be Manchester. Still don't know. Got off the plane at Heathrow, and it was the Spurs assistant, Eddie Bailey, that met me. And I come out with this Cockney accent. I'm going, what did he just say? Couldn't understand the word he said. And later on, just as we're coming out of Tottenham High Street, he says, welcome to White Hart Lane. And that's when I knew it was Spurs. And I walked in, Mr. Nicholson was sitting, you know. Had a wee conversation with him. He told me my wages, what I'd be on. And I says, just give us your pen now. I don't want to know nothing else. I'll sign the contract. You
Alfie, how did you feel though at that point when he said welcome to Tottenham? Because you speak about this in the book that you said here, Rangers have sold me to Tottenham and hadn't said a thing to me. I knew nothing about the move. It was a poor way to conduct their business. Yeah. How are you feeling at that point? Was there any part of you where you're thinking, I'm not doing this?
No, never. And the other thing was I didn't know Aston Villa and Sunderland were in for me as well. And that's news. I knew Man United because I obviously spoke to Tommy Docherty. But no, once when I joined Spurs, I had the beauty. I had a cousin that stayed, and he was a Spurs supporter. And it's funny because he was at my wedding, and he said, "Wouldn't it be great if you could get down to Tottenham?" You know, 2 months later, I'm down there. You know, but no, we loved it down in London, and we didn't stay in London itself. We stayed outside it. You know, and there was a few Pat Jennings and Mike England, Ray Evans. They were all in that area. You know, so.
Of course, as you just mentioned there, Alfie, you got married only 2 months before you moved to Tottenham, and you just decorated a house in Scotland.
Yeah.
How did your wife take it?
Sorry?
How did your wife take the news?
As any wife can, you know, she goes where I go, sort of thing. And I don't mean that badly, you know. It was either that or she stayed in the house and I was away for 3 years. You know, so we thought about maybe leasing it out and we went, no, too much hassle. Sell the house, moved in, we won't get the deposit for the house in London.
Yeah.
No, but we did. We bought the house, we decorated it from top to bottom. We're all in the house about 6 weeks, I think, and we had to move.
So, of course, at this point, Alfie, July 1974, you've signed for Spurs, £140,000 signing. You arrived in Bill Nicholson's office. You say about Bill Nicholson, friendly but no fool. I'm really, really interested to get your thoughts on Bill Nicholson, what type of character he was.
There's very few managers have it, and they've got an aura about them. When they walk in the room, you know who the manager is, you know, and he would cajole you, you know what I mean? Because even when I wasn't getting a game at the start, he was never off the phone to me. Just get up, keep your head down, work hard in training, he says, and your turn will come. And this is all drained in, you know, put into my mindset, you know, work hard, your turn will come. And it did, you know, but he was, as I say, he was a gentleman, if you know what I mean. You know, there was very few of them, Jock Stein, Don Revie, Bill Shankly, you know, people like that, the managers, that when they walked in, oh, that's a manager.
Yeah, yeah. Alfie, you talk about your contract at Tottenham. You were earning £60 a week at Rangers. Bill Nicholson said, right, son, you'll be on £200 a week. And you couldn't believe it.
That's what I said to him, give me your pen, sign the contract, you know. I didn't even hear the rest, you know, what you could earn over the time. But if you can imagine it, I mean, it's nearly 4 times the money you're getting, you know, to do a job that you love doing anyway. I mean, a lot of players say, I would love to play, I've done it for nothing. You wouldn't, because you had bills to pay, same as anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, so that made a big difference to us. You've
mentioned this already, and you talk about this a lot in the book. Willie Waddle travelled down from Scotland with you. He sat in the meeting. He remained quiet. Bill Nicholson then told you about there's going to be bonuses, appearance money, crowd bonuses linked to the attendance figures. And then you say here, and I quote you, it was up to us to entertain, you know, to bring the fans in, because the more people that came into White Hart Lane, the more money that the players could earn. But let me take you back to the whole Willie Waddle thing. Was that normal then for the someone at the club that was the selling club to go down to the buying club?
Oh, honestly, I don't know, but he was definitely with me, you know, to go and see. They'd had their wee talk before I was taken into the office, obviously, to discuss how much was going to get paid, how it was getting paid. Whatever, that has nothing to do with me. Yeah. You know, that's what happened. And then once I went in, Willie Waddle left the office so I could talk to Mr. Nicholson himself. And basically I think the selling club, the manager was always there or thereabouts. I know he was with me anyway.
Yeah. One thing, of course, Alfie, I'm too young to have seen you play for Spurs or indeed any of your clubs.
But yes, surely.
The people I've spoken to who are old enough to have seen you play, every single one of them has said exactly the same thing. Alfie Conn was an entertainer.
Yeah. I like to entertain. You know, that was part and parcel of my game. But I've got to say that I couldn't have done what I did without the backing I had with the players at Tottenham.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The manager just said, just you go and play. In fact, there was one, we're doing a bit of training, and a heading a ball wasn't a forte of mine. You know?
Yeah.
What it was, heading a ball. And we used to have this rope under the stand at Tottenham, a ball and a rope, and it used to get, the trainer used to swing it back and forward, and you had to run, time it, and try and head it. First time, missed. Second time, missed. Third time, and I've noticed Mr. Nicholson is standing, leaning against one of the posts. Third time, I missed it, and he just come up, standing there with a suit on, whatever. He says, Alfie, forget it. Just you go and practice your dribbling.
Yeah. Alfie, going back to talking about the money side of things, you say here that Spurs played Nottingham Forest in a cup game. We lost. You still got £200. So you went from £15 a week, £60 a week at best at Rangers to quadrupling the wages and bonuses. You say crazy stuff. I wasn't complaining. Money had taken over. If you thought money had taken over when you were playing, think about what it is like now.
Oh, I mean, I don't understand the players. All they need now is a one or a 2 year contract. I mean, £150,000 a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were getting £60 a week. So how long would that have taken us to earn that 150,000? You know, and there was better players than me, a lot better, on less, getting paid less, like Jim Baxter, Willie Henderson, Jimmy Johnson at Celtic, you know, John White at Tottenham, Dave Mackay. You know what I mean? They're playing for less than I was getting at £60 a week.
Yeah.
And it's a case of 150, 200 grand a week. Come on.
When you played, did you ever talk about money in the dressing room of the other players?
No. The only time I did it was my first cup final. We beat Celtic 1-0. Derek Johnson, who scored the goal, was only 16. Beat Celtic 1-0. And me and him are running about celebrating our first medal. And I remember one of the players, I'll not mention his name, but he come up to us and said, enjoy this. He says, because see your next cup final, you'll be asking what the bonus is. And it was true. That's my next cup final. What's the bonus we're getting if we win it? You know, and that was only about 2 years later, 3 years later.
Yeah. Wow. Alfie, you mentioned also in the book that Bill Nicholson had been watching you for a couple of years before signing you at Tottenham, since the Rangers v Tottenham friendly at White Hart Lane.
That's right. Yeah. That's what Mr. Nicholson told me at the time, that he'd been watching me for the White Hart Lane game. It was a pre-season friendly or something. He says, and we'd been watching and keeping an eye on you. That was his words, keeping an eye on you over the last 2 years. You know, so it was quite a surprise as well, because you never know who's watching you.
And it was Mr. Nicholson. I'll refer to him now as Mr. Nicholson. You're so polite about him. He then said to you, call your wife from his office, handed you the phone. And of course, you then phoned her and said, look, I'm moving to Tottenham. She was very supportive, but it was a real chance meeting of you meeting your wife, wasn't it, on the train?
Yeah, it was. We were kept back for training one day. We used to get the early train. So we got the later train, and I noticed this girl sitting a couple of seats down. I went, she's stunning. And I didn't have the bravado to go up and speak to her until we got nearly into Edinburgh. Went across, sat down, and we got on great. Arranged to meet the next day at Waverley Steps in Edinburgh, just up for the Waverley station. Went and had a meal, and we got on, had the meal, talked all night, dropped her off, and asked her if she wanted to go to a football match, if she liked football, and she's went, nah, it's okay. I said, do you want to come with me tomorrow to go and watch a game? She says, yeah. So I picked her up at 11 o'clock because obviously we had to be in early. And I dropped her at this house right across the road from Ibrox, where all the other players' wives would go before the game to get a cup of tea and a sandwich or a drink, whatever it was. I says, right, I'll get you after the game. She says, went, you know, come. I thought I was watching the game here. I says, no, I play with Rangers. Oh. I thought I was going to watch a game. I says, you can't because I'm playing the day. She says, right, okay then, all the best, and I'll see you after the game. So went back to Edinburgh after the game, and would stop for a bite to eat before I dropped her off at her house. And we'd arranged to meet the following week. And she's went, oh, I've had some rammy with my dad. I went, what over? You? I went, oh, here we go. She went back to her dad after I dropped her off and said, you'll never guess who I'm going out with. And he said, who? And she went, Alfie Conn. Well, he was so kind of a heart supporter. He went, Alfie Conn, the footballer? She went, yeah. He's far too old for you. This is not on. It's not happening. You ain't going out with him. Says, no. Says, we're just back for Ibrox. He plays with Rangers. Oh, I'm sorry. But her father thought she was going to go out with my dad. You know? So it was all calmed over. But similarly was a right rammy over it.
Alfie, did your wife go and see or watch you playing for Tottenham regularly?
No, I think she went to 1-2 games, and she went with my cousin and his wife. But I mean, they used to go up into the players' lounge, the old players' lounge at Tottenham, up the iron staircase up into it.
Yeah.
And they used to sit in there, have a couple of drinks, then go to the game. But no, she wasn't really into football, if you know what I mean. You know.
Alfie, so at that point, an hour after the deal, press conference took place. Bill Nicholson said, I'm absolutely delighted. We're happy to have Alfie here. He's agreed to join us. But the team doctor, when you went in for your medical, the team doctor wasn't there. His brother was. You went and saw his brother. And then the doctor later said to you that between us, you should never have passed.
Yeah. Chris, could you do me a favour? Could you hold it for two minutes?
Sure.
I need to nip to the loo.
Sure. No worries.
Okay. Right, thanks.
Just while Alfie's popping to the loo, let's tell everyone about the book again. Of course, it is available through Pitch Publishing, and it is also available on Amazon. Any good bookshop. It is available in hardback. It is £25. You can also order the book through the author Jeff Holmes. You can email jeff.holmes4@btinternet.com. And of course, some of the proceeds do go to motor neuron disease, which is a fantastic charity. So please do support it if you can.
I'm glad to see you got a photo in my wig.
We'll talk about that one in a minute. But yeah, Alfie, talk us through the medical, because you got seen by the brother. What I'm interested in is, I take it the brother was a doctor as well.
Yes, it was two brothers. About 6 months before it, I had to go through a cartilage operation And it took me ages to get back, and my knee wasn't right, because in the days it was like going into a butcher shop to get an operation. You know, it wasn't like a wee cut and you were out the same day. You were in hospital nearly 10 days. So once I had a 2-day medical. You'd done so much the first day, and then you went to the hospital the second day, and that was like your heart, lungs, body, joints, what have you. Everything seemed to be fine. But when I went to see the club doctor, it was a thing. I could never sit in my haunches after this cartilage operation. It wouldn't have let me bend. But this particular day, when the doctor seen me, I did. I managed to do what I had to do. But it was later on, and I had to go to the hospital 2 or 3 times to get my knee drained the fluid. And when I went and seen the club doctor, the original club doctor, his brother, he says, Alfie, I wouldn't have let you pass the medical, because of this fluid kept coming back into my knee, which is, you know, they're taking a chance. But anyway, it worked out not too bad.
Alfie, what was it like in London when you first arrived in London, living in London? Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I think in my time down there, I was only in central London, like the west of London, 3-4 times maximum. And all the time I was down there. Because we stayed in a hotel, I think it is Ware. It was a hotel in Ware, which wasn't far from Hoddesdon, and that's how I got to know the area. And Spurs put me up in the hotel, obviously. And then my wife came down, maybe at the weekend, and then go back to Scotland. And then she finally come down. We stayed in the hotel for a wee while until we found a house where we wanted, you know, to stay. But no, as I say, I love London. My wife loved London because we met a lot of good people down there that became good friends, really good friends. And as I say, my cousin and his wife, he had a big band in London. So there was always people there when I was away, maybe training or away in a away match. There was always people there that my wife could rely on to go out shopping or do this or do that, you know. So it was a great way of life for my wife.
Alfie, shortly after signing for Spurs, Mr. Nicholson said to you, you will make your Spurs debut at the ground where your dad played with such success in a pre-season friendly against Hearts. You must have been delighted.
It was incredible because, you know, I actually came back to Scotland after I'd signed with Spurs, and that was my first meeting, and it was in a hotel in Edinburgh, a hotel called the Barton Hotel in Edinburgh, and that's the first time I really met the players and the manager and staff, if you know what I mean. Before that game, obviously there was pre-season training and what have you, met them there, but this is my first time like going to a game with the rest of the team and the manager.
Yeah.
It was in my hometown, you could put, you know, at Tynecastle. I think I was on the bench that day. I think that was my natural position. Alan McCoy says that we used to call Alan McCoy the judge because he sat at the bench that often. Well, I must have been his assistant.
When I said to you about was there any choice about you going to Tottenham, there must have been some doubt in your mind, because you say in the book that you went back to Scotland for a night, you put your Rangers top on, drinking a can of beer, and you burst into tears. And then I quote you saying, I didn't want to go, I had to go, I struggled a while to let it go. How was that feeling? I suppose you must have been torn in some ways.
Of course I was, because Rangers was my club, you know. But when things weren't working out and I went to Tottenham, spoke to Mr. Nicholson, his staff and whatever, made you feel absolutely welcome.
Yeah.
And I remember it was my mother and father were having a going away party for me and my wife. And I don't know what happened. I just went upstairs, put a Rangers top on, with the pants and the socks, trainers, a can of beer in my hand outside, and burst out crying, you know, because it was a big adventure that I was going into, you know, moving from a wee place in Scotland to the big city centre of London and what have you, you know. So it was a big thing to take in, you know. But as I say, once I made the move, I never ever regretted going to Tottenham. Never.
Alfie, you mentioned the book as well. You said here, training ground was top notch at Tottenham, so different to Rangers. And you then talk about the first training session. You're thinking that you're going to be wearing those, you know, that training kit again. You're wondering why everyone's throwing the clothes on the floor. Pat Jennings then turns around and says to you, no, you're going to get new ones tomorrow.
That's right, because at Ibrox, we used to get a set of training gear on a Monday morning. And after training, you just hung them up. It was like an old metal coat hanger with a blanket underneath it. So you used to put your socks, there a wee bit for your socks, jock straps, pants, shirt, t-shirt underneath, was all hung up on this and put in, and it had hot pipes running through it. It was like cupboards with these hot pipes, and you used to have the gear there. Honest to God, it didn't matter what weather, that was your gear for 1 week, right. Monday to Friday. See, by the time Friday came, if it was the Scottish weather, rain or snow or what have you, you actually hit your socks off the floor. You hear the crack and bang, you know. And you used to wonder why nobody would tackle you. That's maybe the smell, you know. And then you moved into Tottenham. As I say, I was sitting there. It was a double session, in fact. And God, what are they throwing their gear into the centre of there? How do they know what gears is theirs? And it was Pat sat next to me and went, Alfie, you get new training gear every training session. I went, are you kidding me on? And then I told him we used to get one set for a week, you know, so that was a big going as well.
Alfie, when you went into that change room for the very first time at Tottenham, did you get a huge welcome from everyone there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely brilliant. I mean, when I first walked in the dressing room and all the players was there, I mean, I've played for 6 years with Rangers, won the European Cup Winners' Cup, played for some great players up at Ibrox, and yet I'm walking into the Tottenham dressing room. That's Pat Jennings, Cyril Knowles, Stevie Perryman, Martin Chivers, Martin Peters. I'm going, where does it all end? You know, I was a wee bit in awe, believe it or not. And that's after playing and winning a European Cup, Scottish Cup, League Cup, you know, playing with some great players there. It was just a thing, you know, a wee bit in awe.
Alfie, of course, signing for Mr. Nicholson, weirdly, you were Bill Nicholson's last signing because he then stepped down. So having signed for him and Spurs, how did you feel at that point when he stepped down as manager?
It was a case of just wondering who's going to be taking over. Is he going to have the same opinion of you as? And it wasn't just me. I mean, every player at Tottenham at the time were in the same boat because they were waiting on this new manager coming in. And in fact, I'm sure there's a few of the players went and tried to get Mr. Nicholson to change his mind.
Yeah.
So it was a case for me just waiting to see who was coming in and what his style of play was going to be, you know. And the man that came in, honest to God, I did not get on with him was Terry Neal. But what I will say is, it was Terry Neal that gave me my chance, you know, and it was Terry Neal that allowed me to go and play. And then after that, it went downhill.
We'll come on to that. You mentioned also that, of course, you played centre midfield for Rangers, but the one thing you loved about your time at Spurs is the way that they gave you that freedom to move around, do you know, be more creative on the pitch. You loved that, didn't you?
Yeah, oh, it was a case of, I was told the front line, that was my playing area. And as I say, thankfully I had players behind me that could do my dirty work for me, you know, and just say, look, go and play, we'll cover. And that's what happened.
At that point, you were waiting to get into the team. And as you just mentioned there, Terry Neal took over, which was an uncertain spell for everyone between 74 and 76. He was an unpopular figure because, of course, his time at Arsenal. How was that, Alfie? When he came into the club, what was the feeling in the dressing room, given his history with the North London rivals?
I think it was a case of, because of the Arsenal connection, you know, I think there was a lot of players just need to take a step back just to see how things pan out and what have you. And as I say, I can't knock him in any way, shape or form, because it was him that gave me my chance. Although it took a while. But whether he was the right man for the job, honest to God, I don't think he was, you know. Because it showed you, what was it, a year and a half later, he was across at Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know, and Spurs were left.
You were given your debut in a Spurs shirt in competitive competition, the League Cup. We lost 4-0, but it took 3 months before you got any action again. It must have been very frustrating for you at that point. And I know you also mentioned in the book you were playing in the reserves at this point, and then you got sent off in a reserve game for arguing with the referee, and you put that down to frustration.
That was out and out frustration. Do you know? It was. I've always, and whether it might sound big-headed or it's not, always felt I was good enough to play in that Tottenham first team, and it was frustrating. You weren't getting play in. You were sent with the reserves. You were going here, there, and everywhere, you know. And it was. I think it just all built up. Poor referees. They got the brunt of it. You know, they got the brunt of it. I mean, I was sent off a few times, but it was basically for talking back to referees.
Yeah. When you made your league debut as a sub in the Newcastle game, we won 3-0. You came on as a sub against Newcastle, and the team that day: Jennings, Bill, Naylor, England, Knowles, McNabb, Coates, Peters, Perryman, Shivers, Duncan. You come on to replace Martin Shivers. How many of those guys did you stay in touch with when you left Spurs?
To be quite honest, basically none. Because I'm away back to Scotland at this time, you know. So I never really kept in touch as such with the players. I see more of the players nowadays,
yeah,
than I did after I left. Because I obviously came back to Scotland, then I went abroad, then I came back to Scotland, went back down to England, you know, so no. Whereas, I don't know, it's maybe because I wasn't at Tottenham long enough to make any great friendships, if you know what I mean. Because I was there 6-7 years, I've grown up with them. You know what I mean? Two of my best friends are now is Colin Stein and Willie Johnson, who were both at Ibrox at the same time as me.
Yeah.
You know, but we had 6-7 years together.
Alfie, in the January, you say in the book here, you were shocked that senior players Jennings and Knowles had a meeting with Terry Neal because you weren't getting any game time at this point. They actually stuck up for you and said you deserve a chance in the first team, and then you got it in games against Nottingham Forest and then against Newcastle. And then you say, my Tottenham career came alive. We'll, of course, talk about the hat-trick in a minute, but how surprised were you, and at what point did you know that that meeting had taken place?
To be quite truthful with you, I don't know if it actually happened. I was told it had happened, but I spoke to Pat Jennings the last time I was down. He can't remember it. He said, I don't think it happened that way, you know, so I can't get into that because I just do not know if that was the case or not. All I know was I got my chance at Newcastle. And
before we talk about that Newcastle hat-trick, those players that I mentioned there when you made your debut for Tottenham, it seems like a dressing room full of leaders.
Yeah. Well, it was. You know what I mean? We had Stevie Perriman, obviously the captain, the club captain. Martin Trevors, he was a leader up front, you know. Cyril Knowles never stopped talking at the back. Mike England was the same. Joe Kinnear, he was the same, you know. So you had captains in every department, you know, and then you had Pat, he used to tell his defence, just get out my road, I'm coming to take it. You know, and that's basically what happened, you know. And you wouldn't argue with Pat, no with their hands.
I noticed in another interview, someone asked you your toughest opponent, and you said Terry Naylor in training. What was he like? I've spoke to him a couple of times. What a character!
Oh, he's incredible. In fact, I've just back for doing a show with him in Manchester last Saturday there. He just never shuts up. He's in your ear. This is just in training matches. And he's chirping away at you all the time. I thought you could play a bit. You want to come out of my hip pocket? So I'll let you out for 2 minutes if you want a kick of the ball. You know, it was just that. And you just got inside your head, basically. You know, but that's the only time I really worried about was training matches against Terry.
One thing I found fascinating, actually, Alfie, talking to Terry Naylor a couple of times, is the fact that even after like cup finals, big games, he would say things like he'd get the bus home or get the tube home. Imagine that now.
Oh, honest to God, when you think about it, what we used to do, I mean, when I was at Ibrox, they had a code, a dress code. You'd have a collar and tie on. Didn't matter whether you went to training, whether you were out, anywhere. If you were representing Rangers, you had collar and tie on. See if you turned up to the ground without this, and the manager seen you, you were sent home. They actually sent you home, maybe to Kirkcaldy, 50 odd miles away, to get a collar and tie on. You couldn't go in. The only day you got to go in to Ibrox casual was on a Sunday if you were in for a bit of treatment. It's the only time you were casual. Every other time, collar and tie.
Talking about an average day as a Tottenham Hotspur footballer, so going into training, how long were you in training for? And did you ever liaise or party, you know, to use one phrase, with any of your teammates after?
No. We used to go in and maybe do about an hour and a half's training. Or if it was pre-season, you were an hour and a half, 2 hours in the morning, the same in the afternoon, what have you. So you never really had it. By the time you got home, you were knackered, you know, honestly. And it was a case of you went back home, something to eat, into your bed, didn't go out partying, you know, you couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of back in the next day, absolutely aching head to toe. And then you had to go through the same routine again, training, the twice a day and what have you. But no. Any player will tell you, this is what I don't understand today about playing three games a week. We would love to have played 3 games a week just to miss the training. Honest. In fact, we used to play like Saturday, a Monday, a Wednesday, a Saturday, some years at Ibrox, But at that time, we were one of the fittest teams in Scotland. In fact, the fittest team in Scotland, because the manager we had was a boy called Jock Stein, and he got his training in Korea, I think it was.
So the training wasn't harder at Tottenham than Rangers then?
No. Tottenham was more, the first couple of days, they gave you it hard. And then a lot of it was ball work. You done a lot of ball work where, although you were still working hard, still training, doing your wee doggies, 5, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, but you were working hard, except for the times that you got your running exercises to really get you going. But definitely Ibrox was far harder training than Tottenham.
Alfie, probably one of the memorable moments playing for Tottenham, of course, that hat-trick, Newcastle away in a 5-2 win. Of course, the team was struggling at that point, but you got your chance. You really took that opportunity. And talk us through what you remember about that day.
Do you know, Chris, honest to God, I think I've answered this before, and I'll answer it the same way. I ain't got a clue. Honest to God.
You just did your job.
I just do not remember. The only thing I remember about it is going back in the train with my dad and my granddad.
I was going to come on to that.
The train from Newcastle to Edinburgh. My granddad ended up doing the conductor's job, going round and collecting tickets. The conductor's having a drink with us. I'm not sure, but I think he might have got sacked. We didn't hear any more about it anyway.
When you talk about,
I can't remember the game at all.
When you talk about that, like your dad and your granddad coming to see you in that game, I know I've asked you about your wife coming to see you in certain games, but did a lot of family come to support you when you played in matches?
My dad was at the League Cup final, and he came to the Scottish Cup final, and he came to my debut when I played at Wembley for Scotland. That's only 3 games. He'd always come basically if he could to see the first one. So he came to the first cup final, then he came to the second cup final, and my first game at Wembley for Scotland. That's only 3 games.
Alfie, at that point of scoring the hat-trick for Spurs, of course, you then became a permanent fixture in the team. Before we go any further about that season, I want to ask you about Superstitions, about Magpies.
That was a story I've told it a couple of days. I was on my way to training, and this magpie appeared in front of me. And if you're superstitious, you know the magpie is 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy. Half an hour, 3/4 of an hour spent looking for an R1 before I went to training.
You were late for training because you were looking for magpies.
I was looking for a magpie, make it 2 for joy.
Did at one point at Tottenham, you were made to go and see a hypnotist? Is that true?
Oh yeah. It was before the Leeds game. We played Arsenal on the Saturday at Highbury and got beat 1-0, and I missed a glorious chance to keep us up at Highbury. So we were allowed to go home on the Saturday night. Sunday we met at the Chase Hotel in Enfield, I think it was. And Terry Neal, the manager, got us onto this room. He says, I've got somebody for each of you to go and see. And it was a hypnotist, could see into the future. So he used to sit you down, try and hypnotise you, couple of the boys, I think, went under, but the rest of us were, what's he on about, you know? And this is a bit, it was made up, but it was funny, and it came from Martin Chivers. That the boy, he was a hypnotist, but he could see into the future. That was what he was known for. Martin Chivers, one of his stories was 2 weeks later he got knocked down by a bus. He never seen that one coming. That's how that story went about. But that's true about the hypnotist, Roma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's come on to talking about later on that season, because in the Luton game, we were third from bottom at that point. But then we beat Chelsea. You scored in both of those games. Yeah. Can I ask you what you remember about those games? Because at that point, it was very, very important that Spurs got the wins.
Oh, we had to win. I think we had to win 3 or 4 of the last 5 games or something to stay up.
Yeah.
The Luton game, I ain't got a clue. Like somebody, I was doing a Spurs where was it? It was down in London, and the boy says, Alfie, he says, I was there when you scored against Luton. I went, when was that? Because I just cannot, honestly, God, I cannot remember. He says, you took the ball around the goalkeeper. We won 2-1, was it? I think it was 2-1. Blank. Chelsea game, completely different. I remember that it was a corner kick for us, and the ball came across, and I was on the edge of the 18-yard box at an angle, and hit it with my left foot, which was normally for standing on. But this time, I made a great contact with it, and it went to the back of the net. And I think that was, I might be right in saying, did Chelsea go down after that?
They did, yeah.
You know,
you're a Tottenham Hotspur legend just for that.
That's every time I come down to London to a Spurs do, or Manchester, Blackpool, wherever it is, that's always the first thing I bring up is the Chelsea winner, you know.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Leeds game.
Yeah.
The last game of the season, you know.
Of course, Alfie, that was the game that was a must-win game, and Leeds United were a top team back in those days. Last game of the season, we were 3-0 up. You sat on the ball, which of course is known as showboating now. Bremner and Giles not happy with you, but the Tottenham Hotspur fans absolutely loved what you did. Yeah.
It's funny because, as I say, we're coasting 3-0 up. And it wasn't planned. It was just something that happened. You know, the ball got played out to me, and I'd been going by this fool, but I can't mind who it was, all night long. And I basically went to him, coming, because I'm going by you again. And I stood up, and I've looked around, and I can see Pat and goals, and he's shaking his head. And I went, what have I done? And then all of a sudden, Leeds make it 3-2, and I'm going, oh, shit. For being a hero, I'm now going to be the villain, the guy that got Spurs relegated. But fortunately, went up the park, scored, made it 4-2, and we got up. But I remember it was Terry Naylor, funny enough, says to me after, he says, Alfie, Billy Bremner was absolutely raging. He says, he come up to me and told me to get him to stop showboating.
Yeah.
So Terry's come across to me and says, listen, leave it alone. I went, fair enough, you know.
Did the Leeds staff say anything to you after the game?
No, I think Terry Neal sent me in to apologise. So I went in, and I don't know whether it was accepted or not, but I've opened the away dressing room door, popped my head in and went, sorry guys, and then just walked back out.
Because I think it's fair to say, Alfie, it wasn't taken as a joke, in any way at all. They took it as real disrespect.
Oh, aye. Yeah, it sure was. That's how they felt. But to me, no. It was something that I'd done. And I remember watching a game. It wasn't long after it. Leeds were beating Southampton 6-0. I think it was at St Mary's. It might have been. No, it wasn't. It was Elland Road. Leeds was winning 6-0. and Billy Brenner and what do you call him, Johnny Giles were playing keepy up with each other.
Right.
You know, making all these fancy passes, you know, looking one way, passing it the other way, and then keeping the ball up again. And I'm going to myself and I'm watching this. It was on the big match revisited. I went, why did I go and apologise? I says, that's what they're doing. They're showboating. They're trying to take the mic.
Yeah.
That's what I done. You know. That's how it goes.
What do you remember about that game in terms of the atmosphere? Because it's been described as that game was absolutely electric. Of course, we needed a win to stay up. Spurs hadn't been relegated since the 1930s, so it was a massive, massive game. And from what I understand, a number of fans were outside the stadium, couldn't get in. That's,
well, as far as I know, as you can imagine, we were in the dressing room. We just wouldn't go anywhere. Because obviously try to psych and build ourselves up and psych ourselves up. But the Tottenham gates was shut an hour before the kick-off. You know, thousands locked out. It was just incredible, you know. I think it was 55,000 there or something, 56,000, something like that. I'm not sure. But the atmosphere was incredible. You know, that's the best Spurs have been in my time, was that game.
Alfie, you mentioned in the book that you didn't ever get the chance to say goodbye to the crowd. And of course, you were dubbed the king of White Hart Lane, supporters singing. And you mentioned here it was magical. I was the happiest player alive. How would you describe your time at Tottenham overall?
As I say, if Bill, or I'm calling him Bill now, Mr. Nicholson had stayed on, I think I could have still been in London to this day, you know. But things happen, managers change and what have you. That's my only regret. I didn't have a long enough career at White Hart Lane.
Yeah. My
only regret. And then obviously one there, the next minute I'm away, you know. There's a lot of players that get a chance to say bye. You know, I never got that chance.
Can I ask what Terry Neal was like when things weren't going wrong? What was he like in the changing room?
It was hard to say a bad thing about him, other than we had a big fallout, you know. But he was always chirpy, cheery, what have you. But as I say, whether he was the right fit for the Tottenham job at that time, I don't know.
Alfie, the Daily Mirror at this point said Tottenham's heroes were Knowles, Shivers and Alfie Conn. Did you ever read any media reports about games and particularly your performances?
No, very seldom. I've not read the book. I've not read the book except for the last chapter.
Yeah.
But I just press it didn't bother me. You know, whether I had a bad game, a good game, nobody needed to tell me in the papers.
Yeah.
You know, so I never didn't read anything. Basically.
Of course, you had your fair share of injuries during your career, particularly at Tottenham. How hard was that? How hard is it for a player to go through so many injuries and spend time out?
Well, they reckon if you have one bad injury in your career, you've been unlucky. You know, I think I had three knee operations, an Achilles tendon operation that kept me out for near enough a full season. Hamstrings, I think I missed about 3.5 years through injury. I might be wrong. I think it's round about that. You know, and when you add it up, it's disappointing. You know, because it stopped me playing a lot of time at Tottenham. But again, it was down to different managers at different times. You know, but that was my only. That I never played enough games for Tottenham.
Yeah. I quote you from the book as well, saying another reason I enjoyed being at Spurs was the freedom it gave me from the Ibrox police. What do you mean by that?
From the Ibrox, sorry, I didn't.
Police.
Ibrox police?
Yeah, so in other words, at Ibrox, you weren't given that freedom.
I can't remember. No. Oh, there was a story when we were going down to one of the players' weddings in Ayrshire, and we were a bit late, and I went through the speed trap, and it was funny enough, it was Willie Johnson that was in the car with our wives, and it was one of the speed guns at the time, and I went, next thing the police stopped me and waved me into the side. I went, what did they stop me for? He says, oh, there was a boy standing further back there with a gun. I went, you know, tell me that, boy. He says, I'm telling you now. I said, too late, we're getting booked. So one day I said to the boy, I says, Alfie Conn and Willie Johnson, we're sorry, we're on our way to Peter McCloy's, the goalkeeper's wedding. We're running a wee bit late. He says, well, you're running later now, you're getting booked. We're playing the Rangers card, it must have been a Celtic supporter.
Yeah.
You know, so that was me, the police thing.
Alfie, you mentioned, of course, during your time at Tottenham, Keith Birkinshaw then took over. How was that? Because you mentioned also the big match revisited. You appeared on there. This is you actually on the program with Brian Moore, talking about Birkinshaw. You said there's been a clash of personalities. I've been a standby player. I want regular football. I'll have to see Keith next week, hopefully. And then you also went on to say the spirit is good. No chance of us getting relegated. We didn't get relegated that season. But of course, when you did leave Spurs did get relegated the season after. But talk to me about your relationship with Keith Birkinshaw, because from what I've seen, from what I've read in the book, you two didn't get on. Why?
No, just a clash of personalities. And I think a lot of it was down to me because of that, my mouth. You know, if I didn't agree with something, I spoke out. Whether it was right or wrong, in my mind, I was right. You know, and it was just one thing after another. And it was just a clash of personalities that we didn't get on. And it ended up, I had to go. I had to leave. Because I don't think I would have ever got the chance.
Do you actually remember that interview with Brian Moore? Because I think when I watched it,
I said I'll speak to Keith next week.
Yeah, he seemed to be quite taken back by you being so upfront and so honest with that interview.
But that was me. That's what I'm saying. Possibly that gets me into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But as I say, when I was asked the question, I tried to be truthful about it. You know, and that was a case. It wasn't one of my best moments, put it that way.
What sort of guy was Keith Birkinshaw as a Spurs manager, Alfie?
Well, he won how many? 2 cups. So he's done all right, but again, I don't want to get involved in too much, especially if I'm, you know, on that side of it, the downside of it, if you know what I mean. But Keith was a typical, I think he came from Yorkshire somewhere, you know, so he possibly the same values as me, and he wouldn't have backed down, and I wouldn't have backed down, and it was just, that's why it became a clash of personalities.
Do you two get on now?
I don't know. I've never spoke to him since.
Oh, wow.
No, never spoke to him for left Tottenham.
One thing that did really surprise me, this picture that I'm going to put on screen now, you returned to White Hart Lane. Yeah. You hadn't been back to White Hart Lane for, I think, was it like 30 odd years?
30 odd years, yeah.
Why? I
don't know. I think, again, I'm 400 or 500 miles away. You know, for me to appear at Tottenham and what have you, it was costing fortunes, flights, hotels, what have you. And then it was a case of I was asked to do a couple of shows, you know, and get my expenses paid and what have you, you know, and I enjoyed it. And then I got in touch with a boy at Tottenham, and he's invited me down to a couple of hospitality games and what have you, you know. But I would love, I mean, because I stay just outside Glasgow now.
Yeah.
It's partially getting to London. Whereas if I'd still been staying in London, I'd have been at Tottenham a lot more, you know, because of the closeness to where I stayed at the time.
Alfie, of course, Rangers play Tottenham in the Europa League at Ibrox in December. Will you go to the game?
I'm waiting on word. I might be going in to do a couple of lounges as a guest at Rangers. I don't know yet. I'm still waiting on word. You know.
Fantastic.
But I've not been back to Ibrox for so many years either.
We'll come on to talk about that in a second. The Standard once said about you, he's a great footballer, but the hair is the scruffiest I've seen. What did you your appearance, of course, the hair, the sideburns, that was a fantastic look in its day. Did you get a lot of those types of comments?
Yeah. I don't know if it's in the book or not, but there's this one wee woman wrote in, I don't know what age she was at the time. I think she was an older woman. And she says, Alfie Conn, good player, but the scruffiest footballer I've ever seen. You know, because I used to have the long hair, the moustache, the beard, socks at the ankles, jersey outside the pants. Because at Ibrox, you couldn't, had to be short back and sides, jersey inside the pants, socks up to, you know, just below the knee with the ties. So it was just, I felt more freer the way I was than what I used to be, you know. And it suited me. I mean, see shin pads, oh, they're a waste of time. Get rid of them. If somebody's going to kick you, they'll kick you. You know, doesn't matter whether you've got shin pads on or not.
There are a lot of women saying on some of the posts that when I promoted that you were coming on the channel, a lot of women were saying I used to have pictures of Alfie Conn on my wall. You must have had a lot of that as well.
No, for my wife, but a lot of the women would probably be throwing darts at it, especially up here in Glasgow. No, it was nice at the time. Thing with, you know, and my wife took it as it should be taken. You know, a bit of fun, a bit of laughter.
Alfie, of course, controversial times now because you left Spurs. You then went to sign for Celtic. Now, you signed for Celtic for 60,000 in 1977, becoming the first man post-war to play for both Glasgow clubs. Yeah. You quite the quote in the book here. Maybe I was a bit tad naive about the fallout from the move, but I thought the noise would die down after a couple of weeks. How wrong could I be? You're saying that you still get grief now. What has that been like?
Over 40 years, you know. Yeah, it's one thing you don't do up in Glasgow. If you're a Rangers, you don't go to Celtic. If you're Celtic, you don't go to Rangers. But as I say, I wanted to play with Jock Stein. And I've said this in the book, is if Jock Stein hadn't been Celtic manager, I don't think I would have went to Celtic.
Yeah.
You know, but sorry, Mike, you need to take a wee break. I need to go to the loo again. See when you get to her age. Okay, mate.
I'm keeping you for talking for too long. That's what it is, Alfie. But of course, let's tell everyone where they can get hold of the book yet again. Of course, this is a wonderful book, and Alfie has been a fantastic guest so far. Of course, it is called The Alfie Conn Story. What's it all about? It's by Jeff Holmes and is available in hardback, £25. Some of the proceeds do go to a fantastic charity, motor neuron disease. So please support this if you can. You can buy the book directly from the author, Jeff Holmes, jeff.holmes4@btinternet.com. The book is also available on Amazon, all good bookshops. You can get it online as well. So please do support it. Please do support this cause if you can.
Sorry, Chris, when you get to my age, it's a wee bit.
That's absolutely fine. So Alfie, yeah, talk us through about you thought the noise might die down after a couple of weeks. They were your words. How wrong could I be? What has it been like? And also, from you being a Rangers fan to then going to sign for Celtic, that must have been quite a difficult decision for you as well, although you wanted to go and sign for Jock Stein.
Yeah, but it wasn't really. If Rangers had come in, but the Rangers didn't come in for me. Jock Stein did, and I wanted to play with Jock Stein. As I say, if it had been any other manager, I probably wouldn't have signed with Celtic. But I mean, the abuse, a lot of it has died down, don't get me wrong, but there's still a lot of people, In fact, I was at Ibrox and I was saying to the boy, I says, I'm going downstairs to have a quick smoke. Standing outside and there's thousands milling about. Just before kick-off, thousands milling about. And I spotted this one boy and he's walking towards me. And I'm going, you get a feeling about some. He's either going to say something to me or throw a punch. So I says, I'll get in before him. So I went to him. All right, mate, as he approached me. All right, mate, what are you doing here today? I went to watch the game. I thought you would have been hiding in the same cave as Osama bin Laden.
Oh, wow.
Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of abuse that I was getting. Molly Johnson does a part when we were in Perth and I got so much abuse. It was unbelievable. And we walked out this pub on our way to a show. He wanted to stop off. It was his pal's pub. And the abuse was incredible, But again, that's how it goes at the time. You don't think about it. You're looking forward to playing, getting back. I could have went to a couple of clubs in England, I think. But I wanted to go back home to Scotland. Where we were in London, I wouldn't have moved. I wanted to be there. My wife wanted to be there. We couldn't be there. We're up home. And that's basically what happened.
That decision you made, though, Alfie, was it difficult for your family as well?
As a football matter, my wife supported me. It didn't matter what I'd done. She was there to support me.
Yeah.
I never spoke to anybody about it other than Jock Stein, And as far as I know, Jock Stein had spoke to the Celtic players and asked how they felt about if he could get me to come to Celtic. And it was okay, But you look back on things, and it's one of these things. I did it. I've took all the abuse over the years. And that's it, I'm that type.
No regrets?
Listen, honestly, Chris, I've no regrets about anything I did in football. Well, I'm telling a lie. The only one was when I was down at Tottenham. That I wasn't there long enough.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've seen you answer this question a number of times when people have asked you, who do you prefer, Rangers or Celtic? And you always say Spurs. Yeah. I suppose you've been asked that question so often, but I know that you've also replied and said, well, you didn't ever win a league championship with Rangers, but you did win 2 at Celtic.
Yeah, that's right. 2 league championships and a Scottish Cup within 3 years, within 3 seasons, But for enjoyment value, Spurs. You know, I loved it. There was no racial abuse or sectarian abuse or whatever. You had obviously Arsenal, your Chelsea's and what have you, but it wasn't in the same depth as the Rangers Celtic thing.
Have you visited the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yet?
Yeah, I've been down.
Yeah.
I went down with a mate of mine's, and that's what he keeps telling everybody. He says it's a 5-star hotel in the middle of a football pitch. You know?
Yeah.
Honest to God, the last time we were down, I was in the hospitality with Ali Dick and Musa Dembele. But a cracking guy, Musa Dembele is. Ali's no bad either.
Yeah.
With a lovely wee day in the hospitality suite, you know. And when he says that, my mate says that, a 5-star hotel with a football pitch in the middle of it, I went, you know, I think you're right. You know. But the facilities is first class, you know. It's whether the atmosphere, I don't think the atmosphere's the same.
Yeah, it's different.
Because I don't know, it's a strange atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll ask you about Tottenham, the current Tottenham team in a couple of minutes. Going back to your Celtic career, one thing that I did laugh about is when Jock Stein said to you, when you just signed and agreed to sign for Celtic, he said, go and get a haircut. You know, we've already spoken about your haircut, but he said, go and get a haircut. How did you feel at that point?
He didn't say, go and get a haircut. Jock Stein was a great doing it roundabout. And he said, his words was, you know, see all good players, they've got their hair cut short, nice hair. There's the inside of their pants. And I basically went to him, so I have to get a haircut. He just looked at me. He says, a car will pick you up at 9 o'clock in the morning, take you to the barber. He's already booked the appointment for a hair. That was making a difference.
Yeah.
You know, just getting the hair cut with a short back and sides type thing, although it's still quite long, but a lot less. And I wish I had it now right enough. But that was Jock Stein. Aye.
Alfie, what I want to know, an interesting question for you. You didn't ever score against Rangers.
No.
But if you did, would you have celebrated?
I don't know. I don't know. I keep saying I would have just went right up the tunnel.
Yeah.
Into the dressing room. I nearly scored. I actually hit the post. And I don't know. And it's funny because the Celtic supporters, after I've retired, they said, you try to hit the post that day. You didn't want to score against Rangers. The Rangers supporters, they gave me dogs abuse for nearly scoring. You know, so you couldn't win, you know.
You have actually been included in the Rangers Hall of Fame in February 2007.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that.
Did you attend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was there. I think I was inducted in with Davy Smith and Wally Matheson, 2 of the other players. I think we were the last 3 to get inducted. That's a great honour. I've still got, in fact, I gave this, it's a bronze statue, just a Rangers top with your name on it. And I gave that one to my daughter. She's got that in her house, you know.
Alfie, was it more Rangers fans that were upset or more Celtic fans that were upset that you went to the other club?
Oh, no, it was Rangers fans.
Yeah.
To a shady, yeah, because I was one of their own, as Harry Kane is at Tottenham.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I was one of them. And then OYS, in their eyes, I betrayed them.
Yeah.
You know, which I put my hands up. I can see the point, you know. I would never knock them for it, you know. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Alfie, of course, you won 2 caps for your country, Scotland. On your debut, it was against England. England won the game 5-1. Talk us through that game.
My memory's blank. What was that? 5-1, was it?
And of course about the riots as well. You're a peacekeeper.
Oh, I know. It's funny because after the game we were walking off the park and I'd come onto the park alongside Alan Ball. So as we're coming off after the game, we're gubbed 5-1. The missiles is throwing, the English players are walking in, bottles, cans, anything that they could find was getting thrown at them as they were walking up the tunnel. And we Alan Ball's at the back of him and he's went, Alfie, I'm just coming in behind you. He says, because they'll stop throwing the bottles when you walk up. So I walked up, me ball is clinging on, you know. And then there was a riot at night. My cousin, he had organised a do through Mackay, I think it was, that owned the ballroom, the Empire Ballroom, Leicester Square. So all the players, the Scottish players, were invited back, you know, for a wee drink and something to eat and what have you. And the next thing, my cousin comes in. He says, Alfie, I need your help. I went, what for? He says, there's a riot out there. I says, what kind of riot? He says, what kind of riot? He says, there's bottles, cans, glasses, anything going through. I says, and you want me to walk through it? I says, come on. But anyway, I finally got up on the stage, and once I started speaking to them, obviously they knew who it was, and the place emptied within 10 minutes. No more trouble, you know.
Yeah.
But that was, I don't know how it started, you know. But I'm ducking, trying to get up on the stage. Bottles everywhere.
Alfie, I think you've been asked this question a number of times, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The best player you've ever played with on a football pitch? You've replied with George Best. I think you played half a game with him. What was so special about him, in your opinion?
It was, the man had everything. You know what I mean? If you watch some of the games, he's a player. You'd have paid money just to go and watch training. Never mind playing, just go and watch him training. Some of the things he done with the ball. To me, he was the best player I've seen. And that's above Pelé, above Eusebio, you know, that type of player. In fact, Pelé was the one, I'm sure I'm right in saying, Pelé was asked the best player he'd ever seen. And he said George Best.
Yeah.
You know, who you argue with Pelé, you know. But George Best was fantastic. What a player he was. And it was on natural ability, you know. I remember one game the Spurs supporters will mind it as well, when he lobbed Pat Jennings. Ball was played out to him in the 18-yard box and he stuck it out of the back up over Pat as he was coming out. Just a genius. That's the word, genius. Very, very, very few of them geniuses.
Alfie, the last thing I want to ask you about your playing career, you also played abroad. Talk us through that, because, you know, we've already spoken about how hard it was for you going from Scotland to London to play for Tottenham. But, you know, going abroad, what's that like for a professional footballer?
Again, you're going to, it's a new era. But lucky enough, I was married, so I had my wife and I had my family with me, which helped me settle in a bit quicker. But I went across to a club called Pittsburgh Spirit. But they were a six-a-side team that played indoors. When I first went out, we were getting 3,500 inside the arena. It held 17,500. 6 weeks after that, you couldn't get a ticket for it because we went on a winning run. So the crowd started, oh, they're winning. We're going to support them.
Yeah.
Before the end of it, you couldn't get a ticket for the games. That was Pittsburgh. And then after the winter season, I was allowed to go and play the summer season down in San Jose, the Earthquakes, where Bill Folks was the manager. But across in America, if the club weren't ready, they put you on waivers, which means any other club can come in, pick your waivers up, whatever that is. I used to think that was the stuff you got with ice cream. But anyway, you were put on waivers. And the club that had took my waivers up was a team called, I think it was Hartford Hellions or something. No way, it was the coldest place in America during the winter. So I told them I wasn't going. And Hartford had come on to San Jose, they wanted money for me to go and play with them. So San Jose's, I spoke to them, I've told them, don't get any money, I've got an agreement. But unknowns to me, they've now, I've got to go to them or go home. But I didn't get a chance because I got banned for playing outdoor, and then I got banned for playing indoor. So I had to come home. But it was a case of because Hartford had took my waivers up that I had to go there. You got something like 24 hours or 48 hours to leave that club and go to your new club. Well, I went, no, I'm not going. I'm going home. And that's what I did. I went home.
Yeah. You also played for Blackpool as well.
Aye. I think I played about 4 games for them. 4 games. It was just to the end of the season. I actually was offered a 2-year contract after it. But I had to move down to Blackpool, and I wouldn't have moved my kids again. You know, they'd been America, they'd been here, they'd been there. And I went, no, enough's enough.
Alfie, lastly, I just wanted to ask you about Spurs today. What do you make of the appointment of Ange Postecoglou, of course, in his 2nd season now? Some fans are questioning Ange Postecoglou. Of course, Spurs in the last 5 years have gone through 7 different managers in the dugout. Time and patience needed for Postecoglou, would you say?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. If given time, and I keep saying this, any Spurs do I go to, give him time. He's only a couple of players shy of being a top 4 team. A couple of defenders that can defend. Whether, but he's an out and out, he likes to entertain people. And his teams are set up to go and win with a philosophy. He's saying, if they score 1, we're going to score 2. If they score 2, we'll score 3. And I think, given time, and he's got to get the time, he will get it right. Because you tell me, you watch Spurs week in, week out, would you rather watch a Spurs team playing now or a Spurs team that played under Jose Mourinho? All right, Mourinho might have got better results, but you're there to get entertained.
Yeah. I would love to see him get the time, the patience, and the tools and the backing. It'd be an interesting one, Alfie. But what would you say? What is the real reason why Spurs haven't won a trophy in so long? Because our last trophy, 2008, and when you think that, you know, some of these managers, some of these players that have come to the football club and end up leaving without winning trophies, it's madness, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for me to say because I'm not watching them week in, week out. But what I think the best chance Spurs have got to win a trophy is going to come through this manager, Postecoglou. Because as I say, that's the only thing wrong is they give too many bad goals away. You know, defensively, he'll get it right. He done it with Celtic. He done it in Australia. Do you know what? Okay, he's not playing the top tier of football, but he's. I keep going back to that. Give him time. He will get it right, and Spurs will be a force.
Alfie, Ed writes here, Chris, can you ask Alfie about playing with Kenny Dalglish? Of course, Kenny Dalglish was at your wedding as well.
Aye, Kenny was at my wedding, him and Marina. In fact, when I came back to Celtic, Kenny and Marina used to take me and my wife about house hunting. Used to drive us about house hunting, you know, looking for houses and what have you. But Kenny was a special talent. Special talent. In fact, he used to bring my meals in when I was in hospital during the cartilage operation. His father father-in-law owned a pub cum restaurant just round the corner for the hospital. So Kenny used to stop in there every second day and bring me in a steak and chips or something to eat, which I couldn't eat. I lost about, it was just well over a stone because I just couldn't eat, you know. But again, Kenny goes away his own way and I go my own way. But Kenny was fabulous player, you know. Another one where he went to the king of Celtic Park and the king of Liverpool. The talent was immense.
Alfie, if I could ask, if you could choose one game that was your favourite game to play in during your football career, what one would it be?
Cup Winners' Cup final, Barcelona. And probably it was my worst ever game in the Rangers jersey. The worst game I played in the Rangers jersey, but the best game for me personally. That was a highlight.
Yeah.
Highlight.
Alfie, you've been an absolutely fantastic guest. I can't thank you enough for all of your time. Spoke to you for nearly 2 hours. I tell you, I could probably talk to you for another couple of hours. It's been an incredible chat. Thank you so much. And tell everyone where they can buy the book, how they can get hold of the book. Of course, we've given people a real flavour of what's in the book.
Yeah. As I say, Jeff, it's every penny made is a penny closer to getting a cure.
Alfie, thank you so much for being a guest on the Spurs Chat podcast this evening. I can't thank you for all of your time, and hopefully one day I can have a chat in person to you and talk more about Tottenham Hotspur. And hopefully by then, Alfie, when we meet, Spurs might have lifted a trophy or two under Postecoglou. But lastly, where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you? And also, where can they perhaps come and meet you at one of your events? Have you got any events coming up in the near future?
I was supposed to be doing one at the Coach and Horses, but I had to put it off. Couldn't make it. But I've not got a lot happening. I've got a couple of charity do's that's going to happen in Scotland early next year, you know, for the motor neuron. But I don't know about Spurs yet. You know. I'll let you know.
Thank you so much. And hopefully, actually, I might even bump into you at Ibrox in December when Rangers face Spurs. Yeah.
Look us up. I'll be probably, I think it's Tony Stevens. I think he travels up with the Spurs.
Yeah.
So give him a wee buzz and hopefully meet up with him as well. Alfie,
thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed talking about your career on the podcast this evening. So thank you so much for your time.
Hope it went okay, and just
let's sell some books. Let's sell some books now. Please do go and buy Alfie's book.
And Spurs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Alfie. As I said, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Do go and buy Alfie's book. It is a tremendous read, and every single penny, going to motor neuron disease, is a worthwhile cause. So thank you for supporting. We'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.